Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the Russian Federation for hosting this forum. And moreover, I would like to thank the Russian Federation for the work it is currently doing by cleaning the land of Syria from extremist fascism, the same way as your grandfathers cleared Europe of Nazism 70 years ago. We are all at a brink of disaster now. Everybody is talking about ISIS, Al-Nusra, and other terrorist groups that are waging war in our region, supported and aided by certain governments. If we have to speak about Al-Nusra, we have to face the fact that ISIS is not the only fascist organization. It has brothers and sisters, so to say, 1,270 terrorist groups that operate in Syria. We want to bring down ISIS, but we must act in the same way as the Russian Sukhoi bomber was doing above Syria, over Syria. Bombing terrorists without really caring to draw distinctions. I hope we will have enough sense to oppose all terrorists. Sometimes it is easy to defeat your enemy through with weapons, through the use of force, but it is at the same time impossible to do anything about the notions that people have in mind. It's easy to wage war with weapons, but it's impossible to fight ideas. Let us remember the pilot who fell prey, who was executed by those terrorists from ISIS. Dear Mr. Chair, dear delegates, terrorism does not have an ethnic background or an ethnic affiliation. Terrorism does not have a single motherland. I think we need to give up those abstract, idealistic notions or ideas regarding terrorism. There are people of 82 ethnicities currently engaged in terrorist activities in Syria. They come from countries big and small, and now they're all collaborating within ISIS as a single force. But we need to be aware, to realize that those who fight against terrorists only act decisively against one terrorist group, and put it all in fighting this specific terrorist group, while turning a blind eye to the others. Russia, same as the Syrian Arab Army and Iran, is playing a major role in fighting terrorists in Syria, and we must turn to the international community. We must appeal to the international community. We must resort to the UN Security Council Resolution number 2299. We must not forget that there are governments who are responsible for implementing that resolution, for making it real, for acting on it. And the United States of America is one of those nations, one of the safeguards of UN Security Council resolutions. Sometimes large groups engage in fighting and kill people. And this is where an Arab proverb is applicable. If you do evil without knowing it's evil, it's bad. But when you knowingly do evil, it's even worse. Today in Lebanon, terrorists are often put on trial using special court panels, special courts. And so we've come up with this question: who are those takfir fighters? Who are those takfirim? What kind of social environment produced them in the first place? What was the incentive that initially pushed them towards terrorist activity? Studies and research show that there are three types of terrorists. The first type is preachers, ideologists, theoreticians, activists. Those people took up their terrorist activities back in the time of Osama bin Laden. They were the ones who were opposing the United States and the U.S. administration. And I remember one of them, the Kench from Tripoli. He met with bin Laden, with Az-Zawahiri, but at the same time he would also meet with American officials. This category of terrorists, this first generation of terrorists, are very difficult to deal with and to reason with. They are not susceptible to persuasion. Many of those people wear white turbans. They belong to clergy, and they wear white robes, but their hearts are black. We must relieve those people from the halo of sanctity that they falsely have. We must expose them. We must show them for what they are, that they're not white or righteous at all. We must expose the evil that they represent. They are worse than mafia. They're worse than mobsters. Another group of terrorists, the second group of terrorists, are people who are handy with hardware, with technology. People who are good with weapons, with explosives. A lot of them are former army officers from Iraq, from Saddam's army. A lot of them are now in ISIS. They know a thing or two about explosives. I've met some of those. Now, those people are not really motivated by ideology. Among those people, we probably could name Abbas. You know, he characterized himself by saying, you know, I only bring ammunition. I only make sure it goes off when it must. That's all I do. So that's a that's a different type of terrorist. Those are, you know, hardware geeks. And if you want to reason with them or persuade them, you need a different approach as opposed to the ideologists. Now, the third group is the youth. The third type of demographic for the terrorists are people aged between 11, surprising as that may sound, 11 and 25, between 11 and 25 years old. A lot of them are what you may call wayward teens, people who were exposed to drugs or other substance abuse, and there's a very high mortality among them. They are the cannon fodder for the terrorist organizations. In Lebanon, out of every 10 suicide bombers, 7 in 10 suicide bombers in Lebanon actually come from the very young age groups, people aged below 20. So these are these three groups, three types of Islamists, of Islamic terrorists, according to our surveys. Now the question that we want to ask ourselves is, what brought those people into the ranks of terrorist groups? It's not always poverty. A lot of those people are rather well off. There was a person who blew himself up in front of the Iraqi embassy in Beirut. He came from a very prominent family. He went to a prestige university or college. He never needed money. His family had everything, but he didn't care of that. Someone who decides to become a suicide bomber obviously doesn't care about money. They care for something else. So I would like to caution you so that you wouldn't give too much attention to aspects of social or economic background of terrorists, because poverty and economic difficulties are not always the drivers that bring people into a terrorist group. According to our survey, 7 out of 10 terrorist recruits come there due to propaganda dispersed by mass media, using mass media channels, including broadcast media, and even including state-owned media. So basically, their terrorist propaganda is disseminated at our expense with the money that is taken from our taxes. Those who are most susceptible to the takfir propaganda are mainly people who come from rather uneducated walks of life, people from uneducated demographics, people who don't have either an education background or an ideological basis. There are two types of religious personalities. No, there are two types of people as regards their attitude towards religion. Some think that nothing should be changed in our religion, which was established 1400 years ago, and that everything that was installed, all the values, all the guidelines of the religion that used to be installed, they must remain unchanged, unaltered. There's nothing to add, there's nothing to modify, and anyone who suggests any modification should be seen as a heretic. They believe that all the rules governing and regulating the life of a Muslim were dictated to us 1400 years ago, and they must be followed closely, word for word, everything regarding marriage, family life, your household rules. It must stay exactly the way the Prophet gave it to us. The other group believes that on the contrary, everything should be revisited. Everything must be altered and changed and reformed. I believe we need to find a balance between the two. We need to somehow regulate and balance off these two extreme points of view. Maybe at our next forum, sometime in the future, we could focus on this kind of opposition or counterposition. We have thousands of religious networks that engage in propaganda. We have more than 400 spiritual centers that issue fatwas that they claim are purely Islamic, but they don't really have the right to do that, and what they do is not really Muslim. We need to bring up those instances. We need to say that at the same time, there are also spiritual establishments, spiritual institutions, some of them Iranian, which issue moderate fatwas. We must rid our broadcast networks from false prophets, false imams, false preachers. I would like to support the panelist who spoke just before me with his intervention and said that in order to combat terrorism, we must not stand alone. We must be united. We must act in cooperation, in collaboration with all those combating terrorism, without looking at whether those people are Christians or Muslims or whatnot. We all are sharing the same planet, and in Lebanon, for once, we have Muslims of various communities and Christians and so on. And finally, there is a female singer, Madame Fayrouz, in Lebanon, and she sings a very popular song which is called "Come See Me Once a Year," and I would like to leave this as a wish for us to meet sooner on a regular basis. Thank you.